All right, folks, welcome back. Attorney General, I should say, Eric Holder announced that the Justice Department will launch a civil rights investigation into the police department of Ferguson, Missouri. This, of course, in the wake of the shooting that took place there about several weeks ago. I guess it was about a month ago. Michael Brown getting shot after the confrontation with the police officer, and of course that has yet to be adjudicated. A grand jury is looking into that. We expect determination from the grand jury in October. Joining us now is Ron Hosko, president of Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund and former FBI assistant director. Hello, Ron.
Hi there.
Good to talk to you, sir. All right. To me, this is, got politics written all over it, although having said that, this is what Eric Holder does. Ferguson is not the first police force to undergo this kind of scrutiny by this Justice Department. But the timing of it, talk about your take on what's going on here.
Well, I am really concerned about the timing. I think that either this investigation or review has either come too soon or too late. I think that had the department, the civil rights section, been collecting information and processing it, looking for connections effectively, that perhaps they would have identified Ferguson as a hotspot or a problem months or years ago, and then started a review. Or they alternatively could have waited until after the criminal proceedings have gone by, if there does appear to be, and from the Attorney General's remarks, there may be certainly a disconnect within the community, but if there is a problem, that they could have waited until after some of the criminal proceedings had died down, so that this young officer, who is the subject of such great scrutiny right now, might have due process and the potential for an untainted jury pool or grand jury pool.
Right, and okay, so let's go with your first statement that it could have been before or after. Let's go with the before. Is there reason? Do you believe that there is a reason for this to have been looked at in the past, or even to be looked at now? I mean, if we didn't have Michael Brown, have there been an inordinate amount of complaints leveled against the Ferguson Police Department in the past?
I think that it's incumbent on the civil rights section to set that bar, to determine what those metrics ought to be, to say inordinate. What are their triggers? How refined is that mechanism? Do they have a mechanism, or do they just wait for a place to blow up and then they come in and do what they're doing now? I'm not saying that there's not a legitimate purpose for some of those reviews. Certainly, we have communities in our nation that have poor hiring practices, they have training limitations, they have internal challenges that are related to budget. In the 2000s, when budgets and police officers went away and a lot of departments were on a decline, and you make hard decisions. But so certainly we have those communities, but why now? Why is the trigger right now? The Attorney General's
and as you
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. And as you point out, this could jeopardize a fair trial for the officer involved in the shooting. The grand jury is still meeting. A jury pool has to be picked. And you also have talked about the fact that this Justice Department, and I alluded to it in non-specific terms earlier, but this Justice Department has launched twice as many investigations into police departments around the country as any of its predecessors. And you think that while it could be a good thing if it finds something legitimate, it could also be a bad thing and present a bad image and cast a lot of doubt in many communities, correct?
Well, I think that's true. We certainly have communities who have stressed relationships where you may have a predominantly white police force and a predominantly black community, or another minority segment that is significant, and it doesn't necessarily match up with the police department, that the training doesn't match up that their outreach is a mismatch, and that there are friction points. We have that in inner cities where you have predominantly white law enforcement, in many of them going into very challenged areas of the city to encounter groups that are involved that have committed violent crimes, shootings, armed robberies. And so you have the natural tension of law enforcement and the citizenry, but I think the timing of this is questionable. That DOJ is it feels like they're patting themselves on the back for doubling the number of these patterns and practices investigations. Is that because our world has changed, or is it because they're being more aggressive, or they're on a mission to find something? And I think it does risk the potential of creating greater suspicion and distrust within law enforcement.
Let me ask you one more thing, Ron. You know, I've heard so many times over and over in the wake of the Trayvon Martin shooting, in the wake of the Michael Brown shooting, from people of color on TV, whether they're anchors, whether they're commentators, whether they're analysts, about the conversation because they have children of color, have to have with their usually male children about the police. And that just in and of itself, the way it's said, sends such a wrong message to people watching. I think we all have to have a conversation with all of our kids, no matter what color we are. And this is how it goes. Hey, Johnny, hey, Janie, you always obey the police, period. That's your conversation.
I don't disagree with that. I will tell you that I have some somewhat grown kids right now, and I had that very conversation with my son. I think it is a conversation every parent ought to have with a child who's in their teens, or certainly going to get a driver's license and have access to a vehicle, that when those red lights flash behind you, or blue lights, you pull over and you find out what the police officer wants, not punch the gas. The conversation, I think, needs to be broader. It needs to include respect, and that's it. To respect and trust and confidence, those are two-way streets. And
absolutely, Ron. Absolutely, Ron. Very well said. We're up against the clock. Ron Hosko, president of the Law Enforcement Legal Defense Fund, former FBI assistant director. Thank you so much, sir.
I'm happy to be with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll be back with more of the Steve Malzberg Show after the break, but now your Newsmax Now update.